The massive space station called Nexus floated in the dark between three star systems. It was bigger than most moons and held more life than entire planets. Ships came and went like metal insects, carrying creatures from across the galaxy. Today was special. Today was the start of the Galactic Trade Summit. Jinwoo Kim walked through the main corridor with slow, careful steps. He carried a simple black case in his left hand and wore the plain gray clothes that all Earth traders used. His dark hair was cut short, and his face showed no emotion. To anyone watching, he looked like just another human trying to sell Earth products to alien buyers. But Jinwoo was not just any trader. The corridor buzzed with noise and movement. Tall blue creatures with crystal skin talked in musical voices. Small furry beings with 6 arms scurried between the legs of larger aliens. Flying jellyfish creatures drifted near the ceiling, their bodies glowing soft purple. The air smelled like a mix of flowers, metal, and something that might have been cooking meat. Jinwoo stopped at a food stand run by a creature that looked like a walking tree. The alien had rough brown skin and leaves growing from its head. It sold drinks in clear bottles that bubbled and changed color. "Human wants drink?" the tree creature asked in broken common language. "Water," Jinwoo said. His voice was quiet and calm. The tree creature handed him a bottle of clear liquid. Jinwoo paid with a small metal coin and continued walking. He had been on the station for 2 days now. He knew where the security cameras were. He knew which corridors were busy and which were empty. He knew the patrol schedules of the station guards. Most importantly, he knew that someone was hunting. 3 levels below, in the darker parts of the station, something moved through the shadows. Vextool was not like the friendly aliens in the upper levels. He stood 7 feet tall, and his body was covered in black scales that seemed to drink in light. His hands ended in claws that could cut through steel. His yellow eyes could see heat and movement from great distances. Vextool was a shadow maw. His people came from a world where everything tried to kill everything else. Only the strongest and smartest survived. He had killed his first prey when he was still a child. Now, at 40 years old, he had never failed a hunt. He moved like liquid darkness through the maintenance tunnels of the station. His bare feet made no sound on the metal floor. His breathing was so quiet it could not be heard even in the silence. He was the perfect killer. For 3 days, Vextool had been studying his targets. The Trade Summit brought together the most important beings in the galaxy. Leaders, diplomats, rich traders. If enough of them died, the alliance they planned to make would fall apart. His employers wanted chaos. They paid him very well to create it. He had already chosen his first 3 victims. A crystal, being who controlled mining rights on 12 worlds. A floating gas creature that managed shipping routes between star systems. A small furry diplomat who spoke for 30 different species. All of them would be easy to kill. All of them would die before they knew what hit them. But first, he wanted to study the other hunters. Every species had predators, but some were more dangerous than others. The spider beings from Kepler 9 had venom that could drop a creature in seconds. The rock people from the heavy gravity worlds were almost impossible to hurt. The mind readers from the Vega system could make you kill yourself with a thought. And then there were the humans. Vextool had heard stories about humans, but he had never seen one before 3 days ago. The stories were probably lies. Humans came from a small blue world on the edge of the galaxy. They had only joined galactic society 50 years ago. How dangerous could they be? He decided to find out. Moving through the air vents like a ghost, Vextool made his way to the upper levels. He found a good hiding spot behind a support beam and watched the crowd below. There, a human male walking alone through the market area. Vextool focused his enhanced vision on the creature. Humans looked weak. No claws, no armor, no natural weapons. This one was average height and build. Nothing special about him at all, but something was wrong. Vexthul had spent his whole life reading Prey. He could tell when a creature was afraid, angry, or ready to run. Fear had a smell. It made hearts beat faster and muscles tense. Even the strongest creatures showed some sign of nervousness in a crowded, unfamiliar place. The human showed nothing. His heartbeat was steady and slow. His breathing was even. His body language was relaxed, but alert. He moved through the crowd of dangerous aliens like he was walking through his own home. Vexthul watched for 20 minutes. The human stopped at different stalls, looked at weapons and tools, talked to various aliens. Normal trader behavior, but his eyes never stopped moving. He noticed everything. He saw the security cameras, the guard positions, the exit routes, just like a hunter would. The human paused at a weapon seller's booth. The alien behind the counter was showing him a curved blade that glowed with energy. The human picked it up and tested its weight. His fingers found the grip naturally, like he had held similar weapons before. "Very sharp," the weapon seller said. "Cut through most armor." The human nodded and set the blade down gently. "Nice work," he said, "but I am just a trader." The alien laughed. Of course. Just trader." But Vexthul saw something else. When the human held the weapon, his whole body had changed. For just a moment, he had looked like what he really was, a predator. Vexthul felt something he had never experienced before, a cold feeling in his stomach. His survival instincts, honed by millions of years of evolution, were sending him a message: stay away from that one. The human finished his business at the weapons stall and walked away. As he passed near Vexthul's hiding place, he paused for just a second. His head turned slightly like he was listening to something. Then his eyes looked up. Directly at the spot where Vexthul was hidden, for one heartbeat, human and Shadow Maw stared at each other across the crowded station. The human's face showed no surprise, no fear, just calm recognition. Then he smiled slightly and continued walking. Vexthul remained frozen in place for a long time after the human disappeared into the crowd. His mind raced with questions. How had the human known he was there? What was that look in his eyes? And why did every instinct in his body tell him to run? For the first time in his career as an apex killer, Vexthul wondered if he had found something more dangerous than himself. The next morning came with the artificial sunrise that Nexus Station created to help different species keep track of time. Jinwoo Kim sat in a small cafe on level 7, drinking something that almost tasted like Earth coffee. He read reports on his data pad about grain prices and shipping costs. To anyone watching, he looked bored, but his eyes kept moving. He watched the flow of people through the corridor outside. He counted security guards and noted their patrol times. He memorized the faces of everyone who passed by more than once, especially the tall figure in dark clothes who had been following him since yesterday. Jinwoo had spotted his shadow within an hour of their first meeting. The creature was good at hiding, but Jinwoo had been trained by people who were better. He knew the feeling of being watched. He knew how to track a tracker. The Shadow Maw was skilled, but he made small mistakes. He stayed too long in one spot. He moved too smoothly through crowds where normal beings would bump into each other. Most importantly, he smelled like a predator. Humans had good noses, better than most aliens realized. Jinwoo could smell the difference between someone who was nervous and someone who was hunting. The Shadow Maw smelled like a wolf watching sheep. Jinwoo finished his drink and stood up. Time for the morning trade meetings. 3 floors below, Vexthul crouched in an air vent and watched through a metal grate. The human had left the cafe and was walking toward the conference center. His movements were still calm and steady. His heartbeat had not changed at all since yesterday. This bothered Vexthul more than he wanted to admit. In his 40 years of hunting, he had studied hundreds of species. All of them showed stress when they sensed danger. Fear made creatures predictable. It made them run in straight lines or freeze in place or make loud noises. Fear was a hunter's best friend, but this human showed no fear at all. Vexthul had spent the night reading everything he could find about humans in the station's database. What he found was confusing. The official records said humans came from a world called Earth. The planet was listed as Class 7, which meant moderately dangerous. There were some large predators and harsh weather, but nothing special. But there were other files, restricted files that took all of his hacking skills to access. According to these secret reports, Earth was not Class 7. It was Class 12. That meant it was a death world where almost everything was trying to kill almost everything else. Humans had not just survived on this world. They had become the top predators of every environment on the planet. The files contained stories that seemed impossible. Humans who had fought off attacks by creatures 10 times their size. Human soldiers who kept fighting even when they were badly wounded. Human explorers who survived in places that should have killed them in minutes. One report made Vexthul's blood run cold. It described a human colony that had been attacked by a Shadow Maw raiding party. 50 Shadow Maw warriors, the best killers in the galaxy, had tried to take one small human settlement. The humans had won. Not only had they won, they had done it using weapons they made from farming tools and tactics that no military academy would ever teach. They had turned their own settlement into a trap and lured the Shadow Maw warriors into it one by one. The report was written by one of only 3 Shadow Maw who had escaped alive. His final words still made no sense to Vexthul. They do not fight like prey. They do not fight like predators. They fight like something that eats predators. Vexthul shook his head and focused on the present. He had a job to do. Stories were just stories. This human was just one creature, alone on a space station, full of witnesses. How dangerous could he be? The human had reached the conference center. Vexthul moved through the vents to get a better view. The conference room was full of aliens sitting around a curved table. At the head of the table sat Mi-yeon Park, the station's security chief. She was also human, but she looked different from Jinwoo. Where he seemed relaxed, she looked alert. Where he moved smoothly, she moved like a coiled spring. She wore the dark blue uniform of station security, but Vexthul's enhanced vision could see the outline of weapons hidden under her clothes. A plasma pistol on her hip, a combat knife strapped to her leg, something that might have been a grenade in her jacket pocket. This human was clearly a warrior, but that made sense. Security chiefs were usually fighters. It was the third human. That made Vexthul pause. Do-Yun Lee sat in the corner of the room, so quiet and still that most beings would not notice him. He wore simple brown clothes and carried nothing but a small notebook. His face was plain and forgettable. Everything about him said that he was not important. But Vexthul had learned to look beyond appearances. This human's eyes moved constantly, tracking everyone in the room. His body was relaxed but balanced, ready to move in any direction. Most telling, he sat where he could see all the exits and had his back to a solid wall. Vexthul had seen that positioning before. It was how a sniper chose his spot. It was how an assassin watched for targets. It was how someone who killed people for a living made sure he would not be surprised. 3 humans, a traitor, a security chief, and someone who might be the most dangerous person on the station. And they were all in the same room. This could not be a coincidence. The meeting began with boring talk about trade routes and shipping costs. Vexthul ignored most of it and focused on the humans. Jinwoo took notes and asked questions about grain exports. Mi-yeon watched the other delegates and occasionally spoke into her communication device. Do-Yun did nothing at all except watch. But there was something in the way they positioned themselves. The traitor sat where he could see the security chief. The security chief could see the quiet one in the corner. The quiet one could see both of his companions and everyone else in the room. They were not just 3 humans who happened to be in the same place. They were working together. Vexthul felt that cold feeling in his stomach again. If these three were a team, what were they planning? And why did he get the feeling that they already knew he was here? The meeting ended after 2 hours. The delegates began to leave the room in small groups. Jinwoo packed his notes and data pad. Mion spoke quietly with 2 alien security officers. Do-yeon closed his notebook and stood up. As he walked toward the door, Do-yeon's eyes swept the ceiling. For just a moment, his gaze lingered on the air vent where Vexthul was hidden. The human's expression did not change at all, but he smiled slightly and touched something in his pocket before walking out of the room. Vexthul remained perfectly still for 10 minutes after the room was empty. His mind raced with questions and possibilities. The humans knew he was here. They had known since yesterday, maybe longer. So why had they not tried to catch him? Why had they not called for help or set a trap? The answer came to him slowly, and it made his scales crawl with fear. They were not trying to catch him because they did not see him as a threat. To them, he was not a dangerous predator stalking through their territory. He was just another prey animal that did not know it was being hunted. Vexthul returned to his hidden quarters in the abandoned section of the station. The room was small and dark, with no windows and only one entrance. He had chosen it because it was the perfect place to plan kills and dispose of evidence. Now, it felt like a trap. He sat on the metal floor and activated his personal computer. The screen glowed blue in the darkness as he accessed the deepest files in the Shadow Maw military database. He needed to know more about humans. His life might depend on it. The first files were the same ones he had read before. Humans were new to galactic society. They came from a small planet. They seemed harmless. But Vexthul dug deeper, using access. Codes that could get him executed if his own people found out. What he found changed everything. The real files about Earth were marked with the highest security level. Only Shadow Maw generals were supposed to see them. The planet was not Class 7. It was not even Class 12. Earth was Class 15, a rating so dangerous that most species would refuse to believe it existed. Class 15 meant that everything on the planet had evolved to kill. The air was poison to most aliens. The water was full of tiny creatures that ate flesh. The weather could kill in dozens of different ways. But the worst part was the life forms. Earth had produced predators that hunted in packs, predators that set traps, predators that used tools. It had created creatures that could kill prey 10 times their size using only intelligence and determination. And at the top of this nightmare food chain were the humans. Humans had not just survived on this death world. They had conquered it completely. They had wiped out every large predator that threatened them. They had tamed some animals and eaten others to extinction. They had even learned to kill each other in wars that lasted for centuries. The files contained battle reports from the last 50 years. Humans fighting space pirates and winning with inferior ships. Human colonies holding off alien invasions using weapons they built from mining equipment. Human soldiers defeating creatures that should have been impossible to kill. But the most disturbing files were the psychological profiles. According to Shadow Maw scientists, humans were persistence hunters. This meant they did not kill quickly, like normal predators. Instead, they followed their prey for hours or days until the target collapsed from exhaustion. They were patient, relentless, and completely without mercy. Even worse, they could think like their enemies. They studied other species and learned their weaknesses. They adapted their tactics to match any opponent. They turned every environment into a hunting ground. One report described a human bounty hunter who had tracked a Shadow Maw criminal across half the galaxy. The criminal was faster, stronger, and better armed. But the human had studied Shadow Maw psychology and used their own instincts against them. He had spent 6 months setting psychological traps that slowly drove the criminal insane. When they finally met, the Shadow Maw was so broken that he surrendered without a fight. The report ended with a note that made Vexthul's claws dig into the metal floor. Recommendation: Shadow Maw personnel should avoid engaging humans in any situation where the human has time to prepare. They are not just predators. They are predators of predators. Vexthul turned off the computer and sat in darkness. His whole body was shaking, something that had not happened since he was a child. For the first time in his adult life, he was afraid. The humans on this station were not random traders and security guards. They were a hunting pack, and they had been tracking him since he arrived. Every move he made, every place he hid, every plan he formed had been watched and analyzed. They knew exactly what kind of creature he was because they had fought his kind before. They understood how Shadow Maw thought and moved and killed. They were using that knowledge to control him like a puppet on strings. Vexthul forced himself to stand up and think clearly. He was trapped, but he was not dead yet. He still had advantages. He was faster and stronger than any human. His claws could cut through their soft flesh in seconds. His night vision would let him hunt them in the dark places of the station. If he moved quickly and struck without warning, he could kill all 3 humans before they could react. Then he could complete his original mission and escape. But even as he made this plan, he knew it was wrong. The humans would be expecting him to think exactly this way. They had probably prepared for every possible attack he could make. Vexthul checked his weapons: 2 curved blades, a plasma pistol, and a set of poisoned darts. All of them were the best Shadow Maw technology could create. All of them would be useless if the humans knew he was coming. He needed a new approach. Something unpredictable. Something that even human intelligence could not anticipate. The answer came to him as he remembered his original targets: the crystal being who controlled mining rights, the gas creature that managed shipping routes, the furry diplomat who represented 30 species. If he could kill them quickly and publicly, the humans would be forced to respond as security officers. They would have to follow station protocols and galactic law. They could not hunt him openly without evidence. Vexthul began to plan. The crystal being would be first. It was attending a dinner party tonight in the station's most expensive restaurant. Lots of witnesses, but that would work in his favor. A quick strike in the middle of the crowd, then escape in the chaos. The humans might be smart, but they could not protect everyone at once. He spent the rest of the day preparing. He studied the restaurant's layout and found 3 different escape routes. He tested his weapons and prepared his disguise. By evening, he was ready. The restaurant was on level 3, decorated with plants and lights to make it feel like a natural place instead of a metal box floating in space. The crystal being sat at a table near the center of the room, talking with 2 other delegates about ore prices. Vexthul moved through the crowd like a shadow. His disguise made him look like a maintenance worker carrying tools. No one paid attention to him as he worked his way closer to his target. 10 feet away, he reached into his tool bag and gripped the handle of his blade. 5 feet away, he started to pull the weapon free. 3 feet away, he prepared to strike. Then a hand touched his shoulder. "Excuse me," said a quiet voice behind him. "Could you help me with something?" Vexthul turned around and found himself looking into the calm eyes of Do-Yun Lee. The quiet human stood there with a gentle smile, holding what looked like a broken communication device. "I think this is broken," Do-Yun said in a conversational tone. "Could you take a look at it?" Around them, the dinner party continued. No one seemed to notice the 2 figures talking near the crystal being's table. But Vexthul's enhanced senses could detect something else. The device in Do-Hyun's hand was not broken. It was a weapon, disguised to look harmless. And scattered throughout the crowd were at least 6 other humans, all pretending to be waiters and guests. Vexthul was completely surrounded. "How did you know?" he asked quietly. Do-Yun's smile widened slightly. "We have been watching you since before you came aboard this station. We knew you were coming because we know who hired you and why." The human leaned closer and spoke in a whisper that only Shadow Maw hearing could detect. The question now is whether you want to die here, or whether you want to hear what we have to offer. For the second time in 2 days, Vexthul felt something he had never experienced before. He felt like prey. Vexthul made his choice quickly. Death in a crowded restaurant would be messy and pointless. If the humans wanted to talk, he would listen. But he would also look for chances to escape. "What do you want?" he whispered back to Do-hyun. "Follow me," the human said. "Walk normally, smile if you can. We are just two beings having a friendly conversation." They moved through the restaurant toward a side door. Vexthul counted the humans he could spot in the crowd. The number kept growing. What he had thought was a simple dinner party was actually a carefully planned trap with at least 12 human agents positioned throughout the room. The side door led to a service corridor that was empty except for cleaning robots. Do-hyun walked ahead while Vexthul followed, his hand ready to draw a weapon at any moment. "You can relax," Do-hyun said without turning around. "If we wanted you dead, you would never have made it into that restaurant." They walked for 5 minutes through corridors that grew progressively darker and emptier. Finally, Do-hyun stopped at a heavy metal door marked with warning signs in 12 different languages. "Storage room?" Vexthul asked. "Something like that," Do-hyun replied. The door opened to reveal a room that was definitely not for storage. It was a command center filled with computers, communication equipment, and wall screens showing every part of the station. In the center of the room stood Mion Park and Jin-woo Kim. Mion wore full military gear now instead of her security uniform. Her weapons were no longer hidden. Jin-woo had traded his trader clothes for dark tactical gear that made him look like a completely different person. "Welcome to our real workplace," Mion said. "Please sit down." Vexthul remained standing. "You are not station security." "Not exactly," Jin-woo admitted. "Though Mion does have that job as well. We find it useful to have multiple roles." "Then who are you?" The three humans exchanged glances. It was Do-hyun who answered. "We are what humans? Call a cleanup crew. We handle problems that regular law enforcement cannot manage." Vexthul felt his muscles tense. "Problems like me." "Problems like the people who hired you," Mion corrected. "The hegemony wants this trade summit to fail. They sent you to kill key delegates and create chaos. We were sent to stop them." She touched a control panel and one of the wall screens lit up. It showed images of Vexthul entering the station 3 days ago, moving through corridors, hiding in air vents. "We have been tracking you since you arrived," she continued. "We know your weapons, your hiding places, your targets, and your planned escape routes." Another screen showed a detailed map of the station with Vexthul's movements marked in red lines. The pattern looked like a maze, but the humans had clearly understood it perfectly. "You have been very skilled," Jin-woo said. "Your stealth techniques are excellent. Your planning was thorough. Against any other species you would have succeeded easily. But you made one mistake," Do-hyun added. "You tried to hunt humans on a human station." Vexthul looked at the screens around him. "This is not a human station. This is Nexus Station, owned by the Galactic Trade Council." "Owned by them, yes," Mion agreed. "But built by humans, designed by humans, and secretly managed by humans for the last 15 years. More screens lit up, showing schematics and construction records. Nexus Station had been designed from the beginning as a trap for exactly this kind of threat. Every corridor, every room, every hiding place had been planned to give human defenders maximum advantage. "The air vents you used to move around?" Jin-woo pointed to a schematic. "They are all monitored. We watched you crawl through them for days." "The maintenance tunnels you thought were abandoned?" Do-hyun indicated another map. "They are filled with sensors that track heat, movement, and scent. Even your quarters in the old section," Mion finished. "We designed that room specifically for creatures like you. It feels safe, but every sound you made was recorded." Vexthul stared at the evidence of his complete failure. He had thought he was the perfect predator, stalking unsuspecting prey. Instead, he had been a laboratory animal running through a maze built by beings far smarter than himself. "Why?" he asked. "Why go to all this trouble? Why not just kill me when I arrived?" "Because you are not the real problem," Jinwoo explained. "The hegemony has sent killers like you to 12 different locations this month. If we simply eliminate you, they will send another, and another. Eventually, one might succeed. We need to send a different message," Mion added. "We need to show them that hiring assassins to attack human interests is not profitable." Do-hyun walked to another control panel. "We also need to gather intelligence. Who gave you this mission? How did they get you onto the station? What other operations are they planning?" "I will not betray my employers," Vextul said automatically. "We are not asking you to," Jinwoo replied. "We already know who they are and what they want. We have been infiltrating the hegemony for years." The main screen changed to show files and documents marked with hegemony symbols. Names, dates, financial records, communication logs, everything needed to destroy the organization completely. "What we need from you," Mion continued, "is something more personal. We need you to understand what you are really dealing with when you threaten human interests." "I know what humans are," Vextul said. "I read the files. You are persistence hunters from a death world. You are dangerous predators." Do-hyun shook his head. "You still do not understand. We are not just predators. We are something much worse." He touched another control, and the screens around the room filled with images. Battles in space between human ships and alien fleets. Human colonies defending themselves against impossible odds. Human soldiers fighting creatures that should have killed them easily. "We are adaptation specialists," Jinwoo explained. "We study our enemies and become better at being them than they are. When the hegemony sends warriors, we become better warriors," Mion added. "When they send spies, we become better spies. When they send killers," Do-hyun finished, "we become better killers." The screen showed more images. Human agents infiltrating alien organizations. Human soldiers using enemy weapons and tactics against them. Human negotiators turning enemy alliances into civil wars. "For every Shadow Maw assassin the hegemony employs," Jinwoo said, "we have trained 10 humans to think like Shadow Maw assassins. But we also trained them to think like a dozen other species." "Your people are excellent at being Shadow Maw," Mion observed. "But humans are excellent at being everything." Vextul felt something breaking inside his mind. His whole identity was built around being the perfect killer, the ultimate predator. But these humans were telling him that they had created beings who were better at his job than he was. "Impossible," he whispered. Do-hyun smiled sadly. 3 months ago, a human agent infiltrated a Shadow Maw military base on Kepler 7. He spent 2 weeks there, pretending to be one of your people. He learned your language, your customs, your fighting techniques. He even fooled Shadow Maw, who had known each other for years. When his mission was complete, he walked out of the base with copies of every secret file they had, including the ones that contained your assignment details. The screens showed surveillance footage of a figure in Shadow Maw armor moving through what looked like a military facility. The movement was perfect, indistinguishable from a real Shadow Maw. "We knew you were coming here before you knew it yourself," Jinwoo said. "We have been preparing for this moment since the day your employers first considered the idea." Vextul sank into a chair, his legs no longer able to support him. Everything he had believed about himself, about his people, about his place in the universe, was collapsing. "What happens now?" he asked. The 3 humans looked at each other again. Some silent communication passed between them. "Now," Mion said, "we offer you a choice." "Choice? You can die here, tonight, in this room," Do-hyun explained calmly. "It will be quick and painless. Your body will disappear and the hegemony will never know what happened to you." "Or," Vextul asked, Or you can live, Jinwoo said. But living means working for us instead of against us. Vexthul looked up at them with confusion and growing hope. You want me to betray the hegemony? We want you to help us save lives, Myon corrected. The hegemony is planning something much worse than a few assassinations. They want to start a war that will kill millions of beings across dozens of worlds. We need someone with your skills to help us stop them, Do-hyun added. Someone who understands how killers think and move. Why? Would you trust me? Vexthul asked. Jinwoo smiled, and for the first time it looked genuinely warm instead of predatory. Because we understand what it feels like to be a weapon that someone else points at targets. And because we believe that even the most dangerous beings can choose to become something better. Vexthul sat in silence for a long time, thinking about choices he had never imagined he would have to make. Vexthul stared at the three humans for what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes. His mind struggled to process everything he had learned. These beings had turned his entire worldview upside down in the space of one conversation. You said the hegemony is planning a war, he finally said. What kind of war? Myon touched her control panel again. The screens around the room filled with star maps showing troop movements, supply lines, and fleet positions. They want to destroy the trade alliance before it can form, she explained. But killing a few delegates would not be enough. They need something bigger. They are planning to attack human colonies in 3 different systems, Jinwoo continued. They will make it look like the attacks came from alliance member species. This will break trust between potential allies and stop the economic cooperation they fear. Do-hyun pointed to red markers on the star map. 17 million humans live in those colonies, plus another 40 million beings from allied species who work and trade there. The hegemony expects most of them to die in the fighting that follows, Myon added quietly. Vexthul felt sick. He had killed many beings in his career, but always specific targets for specific reasons. The idea of murdering millions of innocents just to prevent trade agreements was beyond evil. When? He asked. 6 days from now, Jinwoo replied. The attacks will begin just as the trade summit reaches its final vote. Can you stop them? The 3 humans exchanged another of their silent communications. Vexthul was beginning to understand that they could share complex thoughts with just glances and tiny facial expressions. It was like watching a pack of predators coordinate a hunt without making any sound. We can stop the attacks themselves, Do-hyun said finally. We have agents in place and ships positioned to intercept their fleets. But that will not solve the real problem, Myon continued. The hegemony will just try again with a different plan. They have unlimited resources and no concern for innocent life. We need to end this permanently, Jinwoo concluded. And for that, we need to get close to their leadership. Vexthul began to understand why they wanted his help. You need someone who can get inside their organization. You are a trusted operative, Do-hyun confirmed. You have completed dozens of missions for them without failure. They would not suspect betrayal from someone with your record. What would you want me to do? Myon brought up a new set of images on the screens. They showed a massive space station, much larger than Nexus Station, surrounded by warships. This is Hegemony Command Station, she explained. Their military and political leadership all work from there. It is the most heavily defended location in their territory. We need someone inside that station, Jinwoo said. Someone who can gather intelligence on their future plans and help us identify targets for elimination. You want me to spy for you? We want you to help us save lives, Do-hyun corrected, including the lives of your own people. Vexthul looked confused. My people? The Shadow Maw homeworld is in the path of the hegemony's expansion plans, Myon explained, bringing up another star map. Once they finish with the human colonies, they intend to conquer 12 more systems. Yours is number 3 on their list. The screen showed detailed invasion plans for the Shadow Maw homeworld. Orbital bombardment, followed by ground assault. Estimated casualties in the billions. They consider your people too dangerous to leave unconquered, Jinwoo said. They plan to reduce your population to a manageable size and use the survivors as soldiers in their armies. Vexthul stared at the plans for the destruction of everything he had ever known. His claws extended involuntarily, cutting deep grooves in the metal chair. "How long have you known about this?" he asked quietly. 2 years, Do-Yun replied. "We have been trying to find a way to warn your government without revealing our intelligence sources. Why not just tell them directly?" "Because they would not believe us," Mion said. "Humans are too new to galactic politics. Your leaders would assume it was some kind of trick." "But they would believe one of their own people," Jinwoo added, "especially someone with your reputation and access to classified information." Vexthul closed his eyes and tried to think clearly. Everything these humans had told him made sense, but it was almost too much to process. He had come here to kill 3 alien delegates and earn a payment. Now he was being asked to help prevent multiple genocides. "If I do this," he said slowly, "if I help you, what happens to me afterward?" "That depends on you," Mion replied. "You could return to your homeworld with evidence of the hegemony threat. Help your people prepare defenses. Or you could stay and work with us," Do-Hyun suggested. "We could use someone with your skills for other missions." "Or you could disappear completely," Jinwoo finished. "New identity, new life. Somewhere the hegemony will never find you." Vexthul opened his eyes and looked at each of the humans in turn. "Why are you giving me these choices? Why not just force me to cooperate?" Jinwoo smiled again, and this time Vexthul could see genuine respect in his eyes. "Because forced cooperation is unreliable. We need someone we can trust completely. And because," Mion added, "we believe that beings should have the right to choose their own path, even beings who have been trained to kill. Even beings who came here to kill us," Do-Hyun concluded. For the first time since this conversation began, Vexthul felt something other than fear and confusion. He felt a strange warmth in his chest, an emotion he did not have a name for. "No one has ever given me choices before," he said quietly. "My entire life has been following orders or completing missions." "That is not a life," Mion observed. "That is just existence." "We are offering you a chance to live instead of just exist," Jinwoo said. "But the choice has to be yours." Vexthul stood up and walked to the screens showing the hegemony invasion plans. Billions of Shadow Maw dead. His homeworld turned into a military base. His people reduced to slave soldiers. Then he looked at the other screens showing human colonies, trade routes, peaceful aliens working together to build something better. The choice was not difficult. "I will help you," he said. "But I want to know everything. No more secrets, no more surprises. If I am going to risk my life for this, I want to understand exactly what I am fighting for." The 3 humans smiled simultaneously, and Vexthul realized that they had been expecting this answer all along. "Fair enough," Mion said. "But you should know that once you hear everything, there will be no going back to your old life." "My old life was killing people for money," Vexthul replied. "I think I can find something better." Do-Yun brought up new files on the screens. "Then let us tell you about the real war that has been going on in this galaxy for the last 50 years. The war that most species do not even know they are fighting," Jinwoo added. "The war between those who want to build and those who want to destroy," Mion concluded. As the humans began to explain the true scope of the conflict, Vexthul felt something he had never experienced before. He felt hope. For the first time in his life, he was not just a weapon pointed at a target. He was a being with choices, working with others who respected those choices. It was terrifying and wonderful at the same time. "Where do we start?" he asked. Jinwoo pulled up a mission briefing on the main screen. "We start by getting you back to Hegemony Command Station with a story they will believe." "What kind of story?" You discovered human agents on Nexus Station, Mion explained. You fought them, but they escaped. You need to report their presence and request backup for a larger operation. That will get you inside their command structure, Do-Yun continued. From there, you can access their planning, databases and communication networks. And then, the three humans looked at each other with expressions that reminded Vexthul why he had been afraid of them in the first place. Then, Mion said quietly, we show the hegemony what happens when you threaten human interests. We show them, Jinwoo added, what apex predators really look like. Vexthul found himself smiling for the first time in years. When do I leave? 6 months later, Vexthul stood on the observation deck of a human patrol ship and watched Hegemony Command Station burn in the darkness of space. The massive structure was breaking apart in slow motion, pieces of metal and debris spinning away into the void. It had taken 3 months to gather the intelligence the humans needed. 3 months of pretending to be loyal to the hegemony while secretly copying their files and recording their meetings. 3 months of watching them plan the deaths of billions of innocent beings. The hardest part had not been the spying or the danger of being discovered. The hardest part had been learning to trust the humans who had become his partners. Jinwoo joined him at the observation window. Any regrets? He asked quietly. Vexthul considered the question seriously. The destruction of Hegemony Command Station meant the death of thousands of beings, including some he had worked with for years. But it also meant the end of an organization that had been planning genocides across a dozen star systems. No, he said finally. They made their choice when they decided that murder was an acceptable business strategy. The galaxy will be safer, now, Jinwoo agreed. But there will always be others like them. Then we will stop them too. They stood in comfortable silence for a while, watching the debris field grow larger. Behind them, the ship's communication systems buzzed with reports from human agents across the galaxy. The hegemony's collapse was causing chaos in some regions, but it was also creating opportunities for legitimate governments to expand their influence. I have something for you, Jinwoo said, handing Vexthul a small data pad. The device contained official documents from the Shadow Maw government, orders for Vexthul to return home immediately for debriefing and reassignment. They want to know how I learned about the hegemony threat, Vexthul said after reading through the files. They are calling me a hero for warning them in time to prepare their defenses. You are a hero, Jinwoo pointed out. You saved your entire species from conquest. We saved them, Vexthul corrected. I could not have done any of this alone. No one can, Jinwoo agreed. That is something humans learned a long time ago. The strongest predator is not the one who hunts alone. It is the one who learns to hunt with others. Vexthul looked at the datapad again. They want me to return to active duty with Shadow Maw Special Operations, full rank restoration and command of my own unit. That sounds like a good offer. Your people need experienced officers who understand the real threats in this galaxy. It is a good offer, Vexthul admitted, but I have a better one. He set the datapad aside and looked at Jinwoo with what humans had taught him to recognize as determination. I want to stay and work with your team. Permanently. Jinwoo raised his eyebrows. Are you sure? Working with us means giving up your old identity completely. You would officially be dead to Shadow Maw records. No going home, no contact with your people, no recognition for what you have accomplished. I have been thinking about what makes someone truly apex, Vexthul said. It is not about being the strongest or the fastest or the most deadly. What is it about? It is about choosing to use your abilities to protect others instead of just yourself. It is about being part of something larger and more important than individual survival. Vexthul pointed to the burning space station. The hegemony was full of apex predators from dozens of species, all of them focused on their own power and profit, but they failed because they never learned to work together for anything except destruction. And humans? Humans understand that true strength comes from cooperation. You make each other stronger instead of competing for dominance. You share knowledge instead of hoarding it. You protect beings who are weaker instead of preying on them. Jinwoo smiled. You have learned a lot in 6 months. I have learned that being Apex is not about what you can kill, Vexthul said. It is about what you choose not to kill. It is about knowing when mercy is stronger than violence. The others will be happy to hear you want to stay, Jinwoo said. Miyeon has been hoping you would make that choice. And Do-hyun? Do-hyun has been designing new missions that would benefit from your particular skills. There are other organizations like the Hegemony out there. Pirates, slavers, weapons dealers, people who profit from suffering and death. Vexthul felt that familiar stirring of hunting instincts, but now it was focused in a different direction. Instead of seeking prey to kill, he was eager to find predators to stop. When do we start? Tomorrow, Jinwoo replied. There is a slaver operation in the Kepler sector that needs immediate attention. They have been raiding colonies and selling the survivors to fighting pits. Slavers, Vexthul growled, his claws extending slightly. I have always hated slavers. Good, because this mission will require someone who can think like them, move like them, and get close enough to destroy them completely. They were interrupted by an announcement from the ship's captain. All personnel to stations. We are receiving a priority communication from Earth Command. Jinwoo and Vexthul made their way to the command center, where Miyeon and Do-hyun were already waiting. The main screen showed the image of a human admiral sitting in what looked like a military briefing room. Congratulations on the successful completion of Operation Apex, the admiral said. The hegemony's collapse has prevented an estimated 60 million casualties across 12 star systems. However, the admiral continued, we have detected increased activity from 3 other hostile organizations. They are attempting to fill the power vacuum left by the hegemony's destruction. New star maps appeared on the screen, showing troop movements and suspected operations across the galaxy. Your team is being reassigned to priority interdiction duties, the admiral explained. You will have full authority to engage and eliminate threats to galactic stability. Translation, Miyeon said quietly to Vexthul. We get to hunt the hunters. New team member acknowledged and approved, the admiral added, looking directly at Vexthul through the screen. Welcome to Earth Special Operations Agent Vex. Your official designation is Apex Unit 7. The communication ended and the team looked at each other with expressions of anticipation. 3 new targets, Do-hyun observed. This should be interesting. Slavers, arms dealers, and a group that calls itself the Extinction Protocol, Miyeon read from her datapad. The last one is particularly concerning. They believe that too many species in the galaxy creates instability. Let me guess, Vexthul said. They want to reduce the number of species to what they consider manageable levels. Exactly, Jinwoo confirmed. They have already sterilized 3 uninhabited worlds that were being prepared for colonization. Next, they plan to target populated systems. Vexthul felt his hunting instincts sharpen to a razor edge. How many beings are we talking about? If they succeed with their current plans, Do-hyun replied, checking his own data, approximately 2 billion across 7 different species. The room fell silent as everyone absorbed that number. 2 billion lives depending on their ability to stop another group of madmen who had decided that mass murder was an acceptable solution to political problems. Well, Vexthul said finally, I suppose we have our work cut out for us. Are you ready for this? Miyeon asked. These will not be simple assassination missions like you used to handle. These are complex operations against well-organized enemies. Vexthul looked around at his new teammates. 6 months ago, he would have seen them as prey or competition. Now he saw them as partners who had taught him what it really meant to be strong. 6 months ago, I was just a weapon that someone else pointed at targets, he said. I killed because that was what I was programmed to do. not because I understood why it was necessary. And now? Jinwoo asked. Now I understand the difference between killing for profit and fighting for justice. I know the difference between being apex because you are feared and being apex because you protect those who cannot protect themselves. Vexthul stood up and faced the star map showing their new targets. I have spent my whole life learning how to be the perfect predator. Now I finally have prey that deserves to be hunted. The slavers first, Do-hyun suggested. They are the most immediate threat to innocent lives. Agreed, Mion said. But we do this properly. Full intelligence gathering, complete mission planning, backup strategies for every contingency. And we do it together, Jinwoo added. No lone wolf operations, no unnecessary risks. Vexthul nodded his understanding. These humans had shown him that true apex predators did not just hunt alone in the darkness. They worked as a coordinated pack, each member contributing their unique strengths to achieve goals that none of them could accomplish individually. When do we leave for the Kepler sector? He asked. 2 hours, Mion replied. That gives us time to review the mission files and prepare equipment. As the team dispersed to make their preparations, Vexthul remained at the observation window for a few more minutes. The debris from Hegemony Command Station was still spinning slowly in the void, a testament to what happened when evil organizations met beings who refused to let them continue their work. He thought about the path that had brought him here. 6 months ago, he had been the galaxy's most feared assassin, killing for money and taking pride in his ability to eliminate any target. He had believed that being apex meant being alone, being feared, being the creature that others stepped back from in terror. Now he understood that true apex status came from something completely different. It came from choosing to stand between innocent beings and those who would harm them. It came from using deadly skills in service of life rather than death. It came from being part of something larger and more important than individual survival. The humans had not just defeated him in their first encounter. They had shown him what he could become if he chose to be better than his nature demanded. As their ship prepared to depart for the Kepler sector and their first mission together, Vexthul felt something he had never experienced in his 40 years of life. He felt like he was finally home. The apex killer, who had once surveyed gatherings for victims, now surveyed the galaxy for threats. And beside him stood humans, who had taught him that the most dangerous predator was not the one who chose to kill, but the one who chose when not to kill. The universe was full of beings who needed protection from those who would exploit or destroy them. And now they had a new guardian who understood both the mind of a killer and the heart of a protector. The hunt for justice was just beginning.